المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. الحمد لله هادينا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هادينا الله الأول والآخر والزاخر والباطن وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين وإمام المرسلين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين.
Shukran, Imam Jallo. Bishop, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Lord God of power and might, the creator of heaven and earth, the protector of all humankind and defender of all humankind throughout the whole world. As we begin our session, the TRRC, we pray that the Holy Spirit's power will be with the TRRC, will be with all who will come to testify in this place. The Lord, that they will have the courage to stand for the truth and speak the truth. And help us as we seek to bring out the truth, to bring about reconciliation, to bring about reparation, and to bring about justice for all, that this will be done in tranquility, in peace, and in quietness. This we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, my Bishop, for that. Council, are we ready with witness for today?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, ladies and gentlemen. The legal team is ready to proceed with the next witness. May I ask the author to bring in the witness? As that is being done, Mr. Chairman, about victimizations or violations of rights that they suffered. So I just reiterate your call that people should or recording of the historical violations that occurred in this country. Welcome, Mr. Dabo.
I, Usainu Dabo.
Usainu Dabo.
Do swear that.
Do swear that.
I will speak the truth.
I will speak the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
You may be seated, sir. Dabo, welcome to the TRRC. May I first of all see that you would come before the... I just want to set out a roadmap as to what is expected in the last 25. On the basis of our planning, we do not intend to go through everything that you can talk about. For now, we intend to call you on 3 separate occasions, today being the first. And for the purposes of today's hearing, you will talk about the persecution of political opponents of the AFPRC/APRC. That incident is very significant. We think it deserves a special hearing. So we would hold a hearing on that particular issue, and we expect, God willing, that you'd also be a witness on that particular hearing on the evolution of Gambia's constitution from what started off as a people's constitution to basically ending up with a dictatorial or a dictatorship constitution. How we evolved from 50 and in your so when that time comes, we would want you to con coup d'etat and the response by the Bar Association. Also examine him, the arrest in 1995, October 1995, and detention of some of these former ministers and other civilians, demonstrators. Detention, especially taunts by setting how the government react a long period without challenge. Your foray into politics, how it all came about, and why you had to need for investigating the unlawful killing of Usman Korosise. The arrests of some of your colleagues, including Siaka Sonko, Seini Sabali, Keme Senjame, and others, and all these other subsequent arrests that happened. Significantly, we would wish to talk about the attack on youths who were at around Westfield on the same. The activities of the people you call want you to talk about what happened to such release of some detainees. We would want you to talk about the 2001 indictment, of course, Lamin Wajuara and Kemeseng. And significantly, the things that happened to Momodou Sanyang, the harassment of UDP supporters, Singul Nyasi and others, and Diana 14 case. And then we would end it there. And with your indulgence, we would call you on 2-4 We would take it easy. Perhaps we should call it a day until some other time. We would also be equally
very happy to proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dabo. I was struggling to find words as to how to introduce you. Say, flag bearer of the UDP party, former vice president, current opposition to the government or opposition to whatever. But anyway.
I'm not opposed to any government now, and we want to see the fruits.
Focus on the issues that happened from July 22nd onwards until just before the arrest and detention of Mr. Solo Sandeng. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Dabo, can you please briefly give us your biographical information? Briefly.
And St. Augustine's Secondary School and Gambia High School.
You said you attended St. Augustine's Secondary School from 1961. Was it called St. Augustine's Secondary School, high school, and thereafter you trained to become a lawyer? And you went into private practice.
Went into practice.
In private practice, you went into private practice in the treason trials of 1981, 1982. That's gone. 1994.
In fact, on July 22nd, I was actually in my office, in my law office, because I did not believe, to accept the reality when I was returning home. Found soldiers at Denton Bridge, and people were stopped, searched, and then actually country that was ruled by the military, and they could behave any way. I've seen them in Nigeria treat important people in ways that no one can imagine. So I didn't want to expose myself.
What?
Yeah. My place of abode, asked leave. You know, I went to a sister, Nyanganjai, wanting to
know why the soldiers came looking for you.
Well, I believed they were lawyers to promulgate the laws for themselves. And I believed that exactly that is what they wanted me to do, and I couldn't really help them in their treasonable activities. So I went into hiding.
At this, just to push that point a little further, and for the successful coup d'etat, once it becomes acceptable.
There's some other theories, and my professor, coup d'etat, and in fact, because of his pronouncement as the Chief Justice of Nigeria, the military government then put a decree, so that all decrees supersede. All decrees now prevail over any other law in the country. So because of course, is that when a coup succeeds, the new order takes the place of the old order. So when people comply, then it becomes de facto government. The institution remains supreme in certain aspects, not in every aspect. That remains intact. And in our own case, not only fundamental rights, the decree even did away with fundamental human rights in this country.
And that is what obtained in Gambia and happened to be the accepted law in Gambia at that time.
That is right.
That's right.
That's right.
So, but that regardless, you maintained your abhorrence.
Well, the Gambia Bar Association reaction was to ask the government to return power to the civilian government within 6 months. Sala, I delivered a letter to him.
I must have been the discussions. That act started creating Asia.
Well, certainly the government didn't appreciate what the Gambia Bar Association did. We were on the side of the Constitution, on the side of the say eye to eye. And in fact, way down about November or so, there was a little rift in the bar because the orders. In fact, I led that group that we cannot really attend a legal year celebrations presided over by about the rule of law, when in fact they have assaulted the Constitution. The way they arrest, we cannot possibly attend a legal year celebrations presided over by those people. And at the end of the day, it came a matter of personal choice, and I chose to be on the side of the Constitution. I chose to be against the military.
Legal year. I was disappointed but that day you held an interview. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, on that day, BBC got a call from BBC and asked about the legal year, why the Bar Association was not attending, or what was the question of the Bar Association, and my answer was that, even though I was president of the Bar Association, I did not have the mandate of the Bar Association to speak on that issue with anybody. So I cannot really give them for any lawyer to attend such a gathering. That is an affront to us. And later on that day, whilst I was Bundu, people came and pretended to be clients, and wanted me to give them some advice. But when I went out of the compound, I was grabbed, came out and rescued me from the people who wanted to take me away. I didn't know them.
But did you ultimately find out who these
people was the brother of Baba Job, Mr. Dada Job.
And do you know what name was ascribed to this particular group of people?
No, at that time I didn't know. I didn't.
Do you?
Well, yes. Well, I heard that there was a committee for the defense of the revolution, but its membership.
Individuals who attempted to abduct you, including Baba Job's brother, were in fact members of this so-called group committee for the defense of the revolution.
Well, there could be, but I had no such information, and I had no such knowledge.
That's good. Could you tell us about that?
Yes, we visited the junta to again reiterate our position as to the desirability of the military returning to the barracks and handing over the country to civilian rule. And it was not a hostile meeting, and was quite taken aback by, well, not taken aback, but pleasantly surprised by a statement that Edward Ngate made. That look, we are blind people. You are the people who see. So please, if you see us fall into any ditch, just warn us. And please help us. And when we are, and look at me and say, when they came to my house, and I avoided them. Yes.
You ran away.
Yeah,
That's
I ran
what you
away.
were suggesting,
Yeah,
was it?
Yes. So, and then of course, Dawa Kundas and Jama Kundas, we throw things at each other, and then I said, and so you run away from people. Literally.
I just did, well, it was somewhat cordial meeting, and that must have been the day when the Attorney General was appointed.
That is correct. That was the day the Attorney General was appointed. In fact, after we left,
and who was he?
Mr. Mbai, far from Mbai. After we left the State House, Mr. Mbai is my big brother. We confide in each other, consult each other on a lot of things. And he then called me and said, look, I have been offered the position of Attorney General, and that what do I think? And I said, I think it was an opportune moment for him probably to continue on whatever plans he had when previously was Attorney General. See whatever reforms could be brought in, and that whatever assistance could be given to the regime in matters of directing them on the things that he sucks.
But this opposition to the unlawful overthrow of the Constitution, it subsided, did it, after the initial protest?
Well, by the bar as a body, yes, it subsided. But individual members of the bar still held on to their stand. They still believe that it was unconstitutional, it was unlawful, and that the military has no business in the administration of the country other than safeguarding its territorial integrity and standing by the government in the performance of its constitutional mandate.
Play of processes, both legal and administrative, continued with this new government in the normal way that was envisaged under the law.
That is correct.
Call those events?
Well, I recall,
I am driving particularly at...
Actually, I wasn't aware. I was called by Mr. Dabamarena and asked that I should go and report to the Bakau police.
And who is this Mr. Dabamarena?
He was then an NIO operative. He asked me to report to the...
Do you recall where you were when
I was then in Bakau, in Wavu, where every Sunday, friends, me and my friends, that's where we meet every Sunday. We have lunch together, and Dr. Sirif Sise, Dr. Borususu, Mara Fambayo, my group, every Sunday we meet there and have lunch and a police station.
Did he say the reason why you should?
He did not, but I responded that, look, if he felt that I have done anything wrong, I have committed any crime, they should come and arrest me. I'm not going to voluntarily surrender myself to anybody. Yeah? And that was the end of the conversation. But then, he called one of my junior counsel, Mr. Jabate. He was then, in the security forces, and asked him to prevail on me to really go and surrender myself.
Which Mr. Jabate are you referring to?
Lamin Jabate,
And you said he was more specific on that. Which branch of the security forces was he working at this time, if you can remember?
Well, I'm not sure whether it's. I'm not too sure whether you know. So, but he was in the security.
But it's Lamin Jobate.
Lamin Jobate. Yes.
From Bansang.
From Bansang, we call him Baba Dimin Jobate.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay.
He's from Bansang. He subsequently became a High Court judge and Attorney General. Yes, you know, we come from Bansang. So, and he was kind of my junior brother. So I guess Dabamare knew of our relationship and asked him to prevail on me to surrender. And then he asked me to make a statement on that issue, which I did very short. And I questioned what was the criminality about that. And then I was registered in the residence. There I found several PPP members, including OJ, who was my classmate, Omar Jallo.
Yes.
Omar Jallo. Found Omar Jallo there. I found Hussein Njai, MC Cham, Raif Diab, Sarani Jata, Ismail Jawara, several other people, Mr. Jallo, Sambaj Jallo, Mustafa Diba, Mr. Sise, Mr. Sise, he was permanent secretary, yeah, and several others. Yeah.
Can you give us an estimate of the number of people you found there?
Certainly, it was not less than 60.
Good. Do you know why these people were detained there?
Well, when I went, I subsequently knew that they were detained because they were alleged to have been involved in demonstrations or organizing demonstrations for the ouster of the former regime. That they were protesting against that.
You indicated a bit earlier that that place became your residence or your accommodation. Are you suggesting that you were also detained there?
Yes, I was detained.
Did they tell you that you were being detained there?
Nobody told me that I was being detained, but seeing armed men on guard at the entrance of the residence suggests to me that I was not at liberty, that I could not really go out if I want to. And in fact, that reality became very apparent when I wanted to answer the call of nature. I had to be escorted to go out and pass water. So I knew that my liberty had been taken away from me. I was under detention, whether justifiably or not, but I knew that I was under detention.
Were you told what crime you committed?
I was never told what crime I committed, but during the period of my detention, there was this funny army officer, he called Alaji Kanyi. He would come by 10 o'clock, sit outside there. Lawyer Dabo, decree Jumali Mutabi. Yeah. Another occasion, he would come, Lawyer Dabo, Munebela Mol Bon Lawat Jumale Janto.
Could you translate those comments for us?
Well, what I say, Lawyer Dabo, under what decree have you been arrested? And when are you going to get your people free? Yeah. So nobody told me, and I was hoping that when gentleman was telling me that decree Jumale Mutajanto, if I didn't tell him, he would tell me. But nobody told me.
So what was the purpose of this funny soldier, as you called him?
It was to taunt. It was to taunt me. It was really to taunt me to, probably get me infuriated and react.
When was the last time you saw this soldier, Alaji Kanyi?
When the last time I saw him? The last time I saw him was on the screens of the television.
In which context?
In the context of giving evidence before this commission.
So it's the same Alaji Kanyi who testified before this commission?
It was the same. It was the same. And in fact, when he was even discharged from the army, he came to my law chambers to say that what people say against him is not true. They call him killer, but he have never killed anybody. Yeah.
And what's your assessment of that statement?
I just looked at him and I never responded.
I mean, what is your assessment of that statement?
I thought that was a terrible lie.
Before this commission, Mr. Kanyi was asked this question, whether he taunted you by uttering the statements you just mentioned, and he flatly denied. What do you say to that?
Well, he was just trying to cover up his shame. He was certainly not telling the truth. After all, there were other soldiers. Anyone who mistreated us, we know.
Is it true that at that stage he was being called Mofala Kanyi?
Well, I don't know what he was being called at that time. I certainly did not know. But then, because even I had to inquire, had to find out. Because when he doesn't come into the hangar, he sits outside, he yells my name, and puts his funny question. And I had to find out from some of the soldiers who this person was. And they told me that who he was. And in any situation, you do have some good people. One of the sergeants, I happened to be his father's lawyer. And he wasn't taking kindly to what Alaji was saying to me. And I asked him, and he told me his name, that he was Alaji Kanyi from Jara Sankuya.
You can still remember the place he came from?
Oh, yes.
You must have been very hurt by what he said.
Well, I certainly felt bad that a person of such low thinking capacity could be allowed by the regime to come to our detention center, taunt us, try to psychologically, suppress us, try to break us down psychologically. I felt very bad about that. And I felt bad more about it, not because of what he himself was doing, but his masters, at whose behest on whose behalf he was doing these things. I felt terribly about that these could not be the people who should really be left to manage the affairs of this country.
You found at that hangar, as you call it, that detention facility, you found about 60 people there. Could you tell us their general condition when you saw them?
Really, really terrible.
We want a full description, as far as you can recall.
Maybe I wouldn't be able to recall in specific individuals, but because MC Cham was my uncle, he's my uncle. He was in a terrible situation, and I know he must have been brutalized.
What did you see on him that suggests to you that he was brutalized?
Well, I saw bruises on him, and still very strong man. You know, for him to sit down for a while was finding it difficult. Those who know MC Cham really know that he is a very robust person, very strong person. If he finds it difficult or could not sit for a long time, he must have suffered something. Ismaila Jawara was equally in a very terrible situation, very terrible condition. Yeah? He had bruises all over. Not only that, I saw the spills of onions when women on scale fish. That water poured on him.
By who?
By the people who had taken custody of him.
And who are these people?
And these are the security officers. And Uncle Raif, he was lying on the floor, and there was this, young soldier, protesting. Look at these people. You want to overthrow this government. You want to bring the Americans to kill us. But we'll kill all of you. Insulted our mothers. Said profane, things about us and our parentage. And looked at Raif, kicked him on the head, and said, look at you, foreigner, coming here to destabilize this country.
Do you recall the name of that soldier?
No, I don't. In fact, they never disclosed their names. And Uncle Raif just raised his head, looked at this man, and said, "Ntamana Gambian singla, na tankunglela."
What does that mean in Mandinka? Can you translate it into English?
It means that, I never migrated to the Gambia. I was born in the Gambia.
And he said so in Mandinka?
In Mandinka. Uncle Raif is a Mandinka. He just happened to be not black. Well, Uncle Raif is Mandinka, from Janjambure.
What was his last name?
Diab.
And apart from Uncle Raif and Mr. MC Cham and Jawara, did you see any other person in that group who you believe to have been brutalized, as you call it?
Virtually, I think virtually all of them were brutalized. I think I was the only lucky one who was not subjected to any physical torture.
So by brutalize, you mean torture?
Yes.
So, and you are the only one who was spared?
I believe I was the only one who escaped it.
There were some women who were detained with this group. Are you aware of that?
Well, yes. I know Kosotelo, Adamasise, and Mama Jawara. But I believe they were taken to the Banjul station.
And now that we have talked about the conditions in which you saw these people, let's talk about the conditions of detention. Say the physical conditions of the hangar and general conditions in which you were detained.
You know, the hangar is, of course, the place that is used for maintenance of vehicles, changing of oil and so forth. We had an old, dirty tarpaulin that was our bedding, and of course insects crawling all over us. It was hot and not permitted to have bath, no change of clothing, and no food. When I mean no food, food that we are accustomed to eating. In fact, when we manage to smuggle in piped peanut, we call that filet. So it was a real terrible condition.
Would you describe those conditions as humane?
I think the conditions were sordid and squalid.
And you indicated that some of your colleagues there were brutalized. Do you know whether any one of them has been allowed to go out and receive medical treatment?
No, none was allowed to go out to get medical treatment.
Personally, did you suffer any physical injuries?
I did not suffer any physical injuries, but I had infection. Because for several days I never had a bath. Even the smell of my body, I found it nauseating. I would want to vomit. When I raised my arms and my odor coming from my armpit, found it nauseating, I want to vomit. And my umbilicus, sweat, settled in, and then, got infected.
You mean your belly button?
That's right. And then had a quote unquote a nephew, because he's a nephew to a friend who was in the pyramid of the police. Yeah. When he learned of my condition, he came in and arranged that in the evenings, when all officers are away, he could come in and attend to me. Yeah. He would clean the infected area and with Dettol, and give me some antibiotics to drink, and then he would take the rest away so that nothing is found on me. And in that process too, he would arrange for Dr. Borosuso, my friend, to come and see me so that he could go tell the family that at least I am alive and that I'm not suffering any ailment. Yeah. And on occasions too, they will bring a sawarama for me, which I would consume before I'm taken back into the cells. Yes. So he was very kind. He's in the naval unit of the Gambia Armed Forces. He's Mr. Sedi.
Do you know whether your 60-odd other colleagues had that opportunity?
No.
And for how long were you kept detained in that condition?
I was kept detained in that condition for, I think, about 23 or 24 days when I was released.
At during this period, were you taken before any court of law?
I was never taken before any court of law, nor was I taken before any administrative tribunal.
At that time, what was the longest period of pre-trial, of pre-appearance period for detention? The longest period you could be detained without charge. What was the period at the time?
Council, I think this was even the time when the human rights provisions in the Constitution were abrogated. So we had to rely on the common law, and it should be reasonable as soon as practicable.
Yes, sir. But even at this stage, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the detention period was extended to 72 hours, and it was subsequently that a decree was passed allowing for a period of detention, prolonged period of detention without challenge. I guess that was the case, wasn't it?
Yeah, the decree was promulgated a day after my release, because I certainly was going to sue for unlawful detention. And I think it was to preempt me and others who might want to sue the government for unlawful detention that decree was promulgated.
And you were released, and what happened to your colleagues with whom you were in detention?
My colleagues, they remained in detention until about January 1997. They
almost how many months? Almost 1 year.
More than 1 year.
Another 1 year.
More than 1 year.
More than 1
because they were still in detention when the presidential elections took place in September of 1996. And it was before the National Assembly elections of 1997 that they were released. And they were released because the United Democratic Party made it a condition of its participation in the National Assembly election that these people must be released from detention.
What do you say to the suggestion that these people were released because some government official made arrangements with the Imam Ratib of Banjul to go and plead with Chairman Jammeh?
I'm not aware of that. What I'm aware of is that we made it a condition because already presidential elections had been universally acclaimed to be very flawed elections. And I believe the government, in order to have any credibility, had to give in to the demands of the United Democratic Party to have these people released.
Would you say that it is self-serving if, say, I tell you that Babukar Jatta, who had responsibility for Fajara barracks at the time, and therefore physical control over those who were detained, or do you say to the suggestion that he organized the release by sending or asking the Imam of Banjul to go to Jammeh and plead with him to secure the release of the detainees? Would you suggest that, or would you say that is self-serving?
I'm not aware that it is so. What I know is the United Democratic Party put pressure on the government to do so. And in any case, why would Babukar Jatta do things through the Imam of the Ratib of Banjul? He was the person in charge of the detainees. He had enough influence in the position that he held in government to persuade his principal to tell him, bring to his attention the unlawfulness of what was being done and ask that he be released. He didn't have to go through any other person. I don't believe so.
So you maintain that these people were released mainly because of the
Because of political pressure. That's
Put
all.
on the government.
On
by
the government,
UDP.
yes.
Okay. So prior to the release of these individuals, you started a foray into politics. Could you tell us about that?
Yes. Actually, my involvement in politics was not anything designed, was unplanned. In August of 1996, I returned from the United States, and I had found that people belonging to other parties that were banned decided to come together to form a party to challenge the incumbent, who was also preparing himself to contest as a civilian president.
And who are you referring to?
I'm referring to some members of PPP, some members of NCP, and some members of GPP.
Those are the people who came together
Yep.
and asked to organize under an umbrella led by yourself.
That is correct.
Okay. But who was the incumbent?
Yahya Jammeh. Yahya Jammeh was the incumbent. Yeah. And of course, it was not an easy decision, and in fact, it wasn't a decision that I could take just by myself. I had family, I had friends. I knew the situation in the country was such that whatever decision one takes on those lines could also affect your family, could affect your friends.
We are interested in understanding what was the environment like at that time. And of course, that would inform or would set color or light on the enormity of that decision at the time.
Of course, the environment was one that was hostile to any challenge to Yahya Jammeh's political aspirations. And that is why other parties, particularly the ruling party, that's why they were banned from taking part in the political life of the country. The leading personnel, the leading figures in all these parties were all banned because Yahya Jammeh did not want to have any opposition to him that will really shake his position. He wanted to make sure that he had an easy ride. So anyone really willing to lead any party that is formed by PPP, GPP, and NCP will certainly be a formidable force, and Yahya Jammeh will certainly fight against such a party by any means and at all costs. And as it has came, it became later on, you will see how much he detested UDP and how much he did to make sure that UDP does not strive in this country.
Do you recall the individual who called you while you were in the U.S. to tell you that they wanted you to lead a political party?
Well, actually, one of my friends, Alaji Sekou Kante, popularly known as Job Kante, and I even wondered how he was able to get the phone number. I wondered how he was able to get it. But then I didn't give any response until when I had consultations with my family. And I must say, I was probably have decided when I got to Summer to refill my car, a gentleman, thick-bearded gentleman on a motorbicycle came by, stood by my car, looked at me, and said, "Lawyer double at Nyemtibang." I said, "Ntelom, ha ntelom." And then he said, "Ikana mola jikotinya. Ikana mola jikotinya."
What does that mean in English?
He said, I should not betray their confidence.
The first phrase?
The first phrase was, no, he repeated this 3 times. He said, aren't you Lawyer Dabo? I said, yes, I am. And then he said, please, don't betray our confidence. Don't betray our confidence. Don't betray our confidence.
And what did you understand him
and
to
tears
mean?
started rolling down his cheeks. And that really had some impact on me.
What did you think he was referring to when he said, don't betray our confidence?
I think he was referring to the fact that I shouldn't turn down the leadership of the United Democratic, because what had gone wrong, the Gambia, that I was being considered, that I'm in fact thinking about it. So what had gone around?
People were harboring expectations that you would lead the party.
That I would lead the party.
And this was the only viable and credible opposition to Yahya Jammeh's aspirations at the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So kindly tell us, what are the first activities you championed when you decided to join or to lead this new party in opposition to Jammeh?
Well, of course, the first activity was really the launching of the party, which we had scheduled to take place in Brikama. And unfortunately, we couldn't launch the party because the crowd was so huge that my personal security for me became an issue, because anything could happen in that crowd. We didn't have the security that could protect me, and we had to really postpone the launching, and we did so the following week at Fitzgerald.
Where?
Fitzgerald Street.
Fitzgerald Street in Banjul.
In Banjul. And it was at this launching of the party that I talked about our vision for the Gambia. We talked about how we want to enthrone the rule of law in this country and do away with dictatorship and all its vestiges, never to appear in this country again. That the corruption that was taking root, we must make sure that it's abated. I made reference to the $3 million that was stolen and dumped in a Swiss bank account, because I had got documents, affidavits, and I challenged them that if they think that I was saying anything that was not true, I could be taken to court. And of course,
and can you tell us a little more about that accusation that you made against the government? $3 million. Who was alleged to have stolen that money?
Well, Ibu Jallow was alleged to have stolen that money. But we have had evidence that Ibu Jallow alone didn't benefit from that stolen, from the money stolen. We had evidence that Yahya Jammeh had an account opened in Switzerland in his name, and monies were deposited in that account. And in fact, after I made that revelation, I discovered another affidavit sworn to by Samuel Sarr in Senegal, confirming that $3 million was taken away, and that on the pretext that they were going to buy onions and so forth for the Gambian populace. And some of these monies were put in Yahya Jammeh's personal account. I started revealing their corruption. And I said that when we come into power, Korosis's murder must be investigated. And I call on the government that it should investigate it, because it's just unimaginable how a state minister can die in the circumstances in which Korosise was found and no credible investigation conducted. And I believed that the regime was probably responsible for it. That is why no investigations was launched. And I called for an investigation. And I said that we have to do this. And there was protest to the IEC by Edward Ngate.
And what was his protest?
That what I was making reference to about Korosile, that was not an issue for the election. But the chairman of the PIEC then, reaction was that this was a legitimate issue for the Gambians. So I was not really doing anything that was in breach of the code of conduct.
You said earlier that there was no investigations. Why do you think there was no investigations of such a significant murder?
We have not had any report from the government to say that they have conducted investigations and this was the result. Whether culprits were apprehended or not, there was no such report. And I believe that it was deliberate.
On the part of who?
On the part of the government, headed by Yahya Jammeh.
To do what?
To really suppress evidence.
So in fact you're suggesting the government was covering up that crime?
The government was covering up, government was covering up its own crimes.
In fact, you are accusing the government of having committed the murder.
I am accusing the government of being complicit in the murder.
Thank you very much. It's time for our first break.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dabo, for that testimony. Council, I think we would reserve our questions maybe at the end of it. For the moment, we would take a 30-minute break and come back at 12 noon. Meeting is adjourned.